Welcome to Bear's Backyard Barbecue. We're going to do a fun cut today. There's not a ton of videos of this out there. There are some, though, don't get me wrong. But we're going to take a cheap cut of meat, which is a pork loin, and we're going to try to cook it a lot like a Texas-style brisket. Now, you know, Texas-style briskets are delicious, and they're supposed to be cheap. Briskets are supposed to be one of the cheapest cuts of meat you can get. Unfortunately, they're not anymore. So you have to find other methods if you're cooking on a budget. Well, I got this half of a pork loin roast for $2.37 a pound at my local Walmart. So cheap cut of meat. We're going to cook like a brisket with two exceptions. One, we are not cooking this thing past 145 degrees. If we were to cook this past 200 like a brisket, it would dry up like a Popeye's biscuit. Would not be good. It has very little intermuscular fat, if any, and no collagen. So it's not going to stay moist past a certain degrees. You don't want to go that far. And then the other thing is normally when it would hit a specific spot, I would foil boat my Texas briskets. There's no need for a foil boat today. We are just going to try to put as much smoke as possible on this in the next couple of hours, slow smoking it. And once we get the smoke that we feel like we've done a pretty good job on, we are going to finish it off. So my idea here is I'm going to actually start this on the pellet smoker. I'm just turning the pellet smoker to 190 degrees. It's not going to cook very much at that. I'm turning super smoke on today. And I'm also going to have a pellet tube in there to increase the smoke output. My thoughts are I'm probably going to let it run like that for an hour and a half to 2 hours, just infusing some smoke. Afterwards, we're going to pull it off of the pellet smoker and we're going to finish it off another low and slow way. I'll show you that when it comes time to get to that point. Let's see what we can come up with today. Can we save money and make a really good piece of meat out of a really cheap piece of meat? Let's get to it. Okay, normally I would use either W sauce as my binder on a brisket, or I would use some Wagyu beef tallow spray. I'm just worried about how that would clash with the taste of pork, so I'm going to use some duck fat spray. I use that on a lot of pork. I use it on chicken. I always use it on chicken. Then I'm going to put my own homemade SPG. It's coarse black pepper, some kosher salt, Morton's kosher salt, and I've got granulated garlic. Helps make really good bark. I don't expect a really nice black bark on this just because it's a lean piece of pork, but I'm still going to season really heavily. It is a big piece of meat, and big pieces of meat require a whole bunch of seasoning, so I'm going to be pretty liberal when I'm coating it. Then after that, after I get the sides and everything, I'm going to go down with another homemade rub that I've got. This is a kind of a savory beef rub, but I've put it on pork and chicken. It's really flavorful. There's no sugar in this. It doesn't clump up. No black pepper because I've got that in my SPG. It does have a little bit more salt and little garlic, not a whole lot of garlic, but it's got smoked paprika, it's got chili powder, some granulated onion, stuff like that. Just really helps bring out the flavor. After that, we are going on the pellet smoker. I've got the tube filled up with Bear Mountain hickory and oak blend pellets, and I've got super smoke with the exact same pellets in the smoker here. All right, we are about an hour into this cold smoke, I guess you could call it, low and slow smoke on the pellet smoker. Still got plenty of smoke coming out of the pellet tube and out of the smoker itself with that super smoke on. Now we're going to take a look at it. We're probably going to spritz it. Then I'm going to let it go for maybe another half hour, and then we'll start the other smoker, let it start warming up before we transfer. All right, let's take a look. About an hour in, smoking tube still doing really good. Looks close to halfway done. And our pork loin brisket is looking good too. We are going to go ahead and spritz it. I've got a little bit of W sauce mixed in just with some water here. Probably 10% of that is W sauce. The rest is water. And we're going to let it go for another half hour. And then we'll start the other smoker warming up. Spritz it again. We may as well probe it while we're out here just to see what we're sitting at, because now I'm kind of curious. All right, right in the middle. It's still tough, sitting at 110-ish. Yep. All right, we are about an hour and a half in our cold smoke. Now we are going to go ahead and get this thing transferred. I'm not using the Smoky Mountain today. Uh, this is only going to take maybe 30 minutes to finish up, maybe longer, hopefully longer, but not going to do all the work to get the Smoky Mountain prepped for that. So we're going to use another fun little tool. And that fun little tool is the kettle. One of my favorite ways to smoke. Once you figure out how to smoke on these things low and slow, man, you kind of get hooked to it, honestly. And it puts out a much better smoke flavor than that pellet smoker does. Uh, so we're going to break it down. I'll put in I'm not using a snake. I just don't feel like this thing is going to cook long enough to make a full snake. So I'm going to put my divider into my charcoal basket, and we're going to fill up half of it with some Jealous Devil Max briquettes. Jealous Devil cooks really hot, and I'm planning on just starting on one end and working my way over to the other, and Jealous Devil will work really well for me. After that, I'm coming in with I've got a handful of hickory and a handful of cherry wood chunks left. So I'm just going to sprinkle some of that into my charcoal, and we're going to light it up with my torch. Got this torch for like 20 bucks off of Amazon. If you don't have one, go get them. They're fun, and they will speed up the process of getting your charcoal lit quite a bit. Now, once I got a good flame going from those wax cubes, I always drop a few briquettes on top of them. That just kind of helps get the rest of them going once those catch. Now it's time to put the grate on, and I am going to go ahead and put in an ambient temperature probe. I really need to keep an eye on my internal temp once I get this thing up to temp. So I'm going to put this in and help myself out quite a bit. Now we are going to go ahead and transfer this joker over to the kettle. It's been on the pellet smoker at 190 for probably about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. I think it's gotten as much pellet smoke infused into it as it's going to. So I'm going to put this probe in to monitor the internal temperature. Once it hits between 142, 145, something like that, we're going to pull it. And then I've got my ambient probe sitting in the kettle to kind of help me keep an eye on the temperature. So, oh, miss, and there we go. So we're going to put the lid on and let the kettle do its thing. Now I'm going to have both my bottom and top vent probably around half open, maybe even as little as a quarter open, trying to keep the temp around 250. If it dips down to 225, that is okay. Even if it gets up to 300, that is okay. 30 minutes later, we are sitting at around 270, 275, and we are starting to look pretty. I am liking the color that this pork loin is starting to get. We are going to continue spritzing every 30 minutes, though, to just to keep it moist. As you can see, I haven't even used hardly any charcoal. Granted, it's only been 30 minutes at this point. 45 minutes and one other spritz later, we are hitting 143, and it is time to pull it. She is looking absolutely fantastic. I did throw my pellet tube in because it was still smoking really good. I figured I'd add some more smoke to it. All right, we are going to go ahead and get our pork loin brisket wrapped in some butcher paper. Normally, I would use beef tallow for this, but kind of worried that's going to clash with the taste of the pork too much. So I'm just going to go down with the classic parquet, and that'll add a little moisture and keep it relatively soft. Not using a ton, it is kind of hot out here. But I'm going to go down with some, wrap it up, which is really simple. It's going to fold in the back and the two edges, roll, keep it folded in. Like so. Roll again. And then to keep it kind of fat side up, what little fat cap that there is on a brisket, put it in like that. Now I'm going to let this rest for probably about 30 minutes. and come down to a decent temperature. And then we will cut into it, see if we kept it juicy, see if we kept it good, see if we turned a cheap piece of meat into something that you can serve to your friends and be proud of. Okay, so to recap, to start, we took a pork loin, a cheap cut of meat that we got for about 12 bucks total, and we want to try to make it as good as we possibly can, so we try to cook it kind of like a brisket. We seasoned it like we would season a brisket. The only difference is we did pull it at around 143, 145 instead of taking it to 200 and letting it dry out. We wrapped it like a brisket, but in parquet butter instead of beef tallow, and we rested it for 30 minutes. We started off on the pellet smoker with a smoking tube and with super smoke on at 190 degrees. That went for about an hour and a half, and then we moved it over to the kettle, and it ended up sitting on the kettle for about another hour, hour and 15 minutes with some hickory and cherry wood chunks on it. And we left it there until it hit temp, spritzing about every 30 minutes to just make sure that the outside didn't dry out. Now we're going to see if we turn something cheap into something fantastic that we would be willing to serve to our friends or family. I'll tell you what, it does smell fantastic. I'm going to bring you in for a close-up. All right, let's see how we did here. Go right in the middle. I don't know if you can tell the sunlight, but that is super, super juicy. All right, let's go in for a taste test here. Really excited to try this out. Hope y'all can see me. Hope the glare's not too bad. But that's what we're looking like here. Super moist, just like we like it. Moist and wet, right? All right, let's try it out. Oh man, that extra long smoke, but you do have a smoke ring here. That extra long smoke with the pellet tube and on the pellet smoker. God, this is fantastic. I try not to overdo it on my reactions. Some of these guys look like they're enjoying themselves at a P. Diddy party whenever they taste their own food. I don't like to make it look exaggerated or over the top, but this is fantastic, and it's cheap. So go buy you a $12 pork loin, cook it like a brisket, cook it until it hits around 145 degrees internal, and then serve it up to your friends. And I'm telling you, they are not going to be disappointed. This is fantastic. So get outside and get to cooking.